There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. She's not going to be safe with a prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
We just witnessed the biggest celebrity screw-up of the year. Yeah, we are talking about Disney's 1937 live-action adaptation of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and somehow they managed to hire an actress who looks like she didn't even bother to read the script. Rachel Zegler clearly didn't get the essence of the movie, and that's putting it lightly. I mean, the movie was so badly reviewed, mostly thanks to Rachel's tone-deaf comments, that filmmakers had no choice but to announce a remake. And guess who is being cast this time? None other than YouTube's favorite Brett Cooper. So what exactly did Rachel do to not only destroy her own film, but possibly her entire career? And how did she react to the new rumors that she is being replaced? Let's get into this mess and find out. The first drama. As soon as Disney started promoting its live-action remake of the iconic Snow White movie, fans instantly saw the flaws and criticized it as much as they could. What were the biggest complaints about the movie? Well, first of all, it was a casting disaster to choose Rachel Zegler as Snow White. Yes, Disney, in all its wisdom, decided to cast a Latina actress for the role of one of the most iconic European characters ever. And while some people were all for it, calling it a refreshing change, a lot of others were furious at the decision. Have you ever read the story? Snow White has German origins, and this casting just felt like a slap in the face to fans of the original folklore. Of course, the internet had a field day with this one. Detractors were loud, saying that Disney completely disrespected the source material and just went ahead with their obsession of forcing woke changes onto classics. Like, sure, Disney, if you want to keep making these movies that bomb at the box office, go ahead. But for the love of everything, leave the beloved classics alone. I mean, would it have killed them to create something original instead of wrecking childhood memories? Especially when you cast someone who does not even seem to understand or care about the story she is starring in. Now, diversity in casting is usually something people celebrate, but this time it lit up a storm of debates. People are genuinely concerned about whether Disney has just lost the plot with their remakes. The charm and magic that made the 1937 original so iconic are being questioned. Has Disney pushed the envelope so far that it has forgotten what made these stories timeless? Because from what we are seeing, this new Snow White is a far cry from the one people fell in love with decades ago. But it was not just the casting that poured gasoline on this dumpster fire. Oh no. Rachel Zegler decided to throw in her own controversial takes, and honestly, that's where everything went downhill. Fast.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937.
In interviews, she didn't hold back on dragging the original Snow White, and fans were furious. Can you imagine someone starring in a beloved film and then trashing it publicly? Zegler called the 1937 Snow White outdated. Sure, maybe some modern audiences might agree with her, but to outright say that about a piece of cinematic history? That's next-level disrespect. We are talking about a film that has been cherished for decades, a story that has been told for generations. But here comes Zegler, taking a wrecking ball to it. One even called Zegler obnoxious and wrote that, given her horrific obnoxious attitude, Snow Woke and the Seven They Them will flop, and I will not be watching the Hunger Games either. But maybe Zegler was not watching the backlash she was receiving. She went on to say this new Snow White is not about love or needing a prince to rescue her. No, now it is all about independence, leadership, and personal growth. Because apparently in today's world, a female character cannot just be kind and hopeful, she has to lead a revolution. So according to her, gone are the days when Snow White is dreaming of being saved by a prince and living happily ever after. Nope. According to Zegler now, she is on a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Because that's exactly what we all wanted, right? To watch Snow White become some fearless leader, ready to tackle the world head-on. Never mind that the original was all about innocence and kindness. Apparently that's too passive for 2024. So what does this mean for the movie? Well, it is pretty obvious. Snow White's entire arc is getting an overhaul. Instead of focusing on her charm and gentle nature, Disney's new version will see her taking charge, facing challenges, and controlling her own fate. In other words, she is no longer the Snow White you grew up loving. Zegler even bragged about how her Snow White will be defined by her strength and courage. separating her from the damsel in distress narrative that Disney princesses are supposedly trapped in. Sure, this aligns with modern storytelling, where every female character has to be a fierce, independent leader, but in doing so, they are completely stripping away what made Snow White so beloved in the first place. The question is, did anyone ask for this radical transformation? For fans of the original, it is just more proof that Disney is moving further away from the magic and heart that made their classics great. And now, the backlash is real. Fans are fed up with Rachel Zegler. For someone cast in such a legendary role, she has managed to alienate a huge portion of the audience. But then, it is not just Zegler who ruined the film for us. Disney had a part in it as well, who made some pretty big, ridiculous changes to the story which we hated. So how did Disney make this movie different from the original version? Controversial changes. One of Disney's biggest blunders was deciding to cut out the Seven Dwarfs. You heard that right. Disney's live-action remake was originally going to have no Seven Dwarfs. Instead, they were planning to replace them with just a bunch of fantastical animals. Because nothing says modern reimagining like erasing iconic characters and throwing in some CGI creatures no one asked for. Now, let's be real for a second. The Seven Dwarfs were not just side characters for us as kids, they were the heart of the original 1937 film. Their personalities, their quirks, the way they balanced out Snow White's innocence with their charm and humor, that's what made the movie so memorable. And for Disney to just scrap that, fans were outraged. Social media practically exploded when this news broke. People are furious, and rightfully so. The Seven Dwarfs are Snow White. They bring the emotional depth, the humor, and honestly, without them, the whole story just falls apart. But apparently, Disney thought they could just modernize the story by tossing out beloved characters and replacing them with CGI animals. Fans saw this for what it was, an unnecessary, forced attempt to be woke and inclusive, but in the worst way possible. They were quick to call out Disney for going too far, for stripping away the very essence of what made Snow White so magical in the first place. Critics didn't hold back either. Many pointed out that updating a film to reflect modern values can be great, but when you start cutting out beloved characters, it is just too much. The Seven Dwarfs have always been an essential part of the story. Their distinct personalities, their dynamic with Snow White, it added so much depth to the film. Removing them felt like a complete overreach. The backlash was so intense that Disney had no choice but to backpedal. After seeing the outrage, they announced that the Seven Dwarfs would indeed be included in the live-action remake. But the damage was already done. Fans have lost faith in the project, and no amount of backtracking can undo the mess they had created. And it only got worse from there. When the first images of the dwarfs were revealed, fans were even more horrified. The CGI versions of these beloved characters were a complete disaster. Some people even joked that they looked like they had walked straight out of Shrek. The Uncanny Valley vibes were strong with this one. Fans could not believe what they were seeing. Why didn't Disney just hire real actors with dwarfism? There are so many talented actors out there who could have brought these characters to life, but instead, Disney opted for awkward CGI monstrosities. Adding insult to injury, David Hand, who is the son of one of the original directors of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, spoke out about the live-action remake. He called it a complete insult to his father's legacy. Hand slammed Disney for losing sight of what made the original so timeless and magical. And if we are being real, he is absolutely right. At this point, Disney's constant meddling with its own legacy is starting to feel like a desperate attempt to stay relevant. But the truth is, they are losing the heart and soul of what made them great in the first place. It was such a big disaster that filmmakers decided to remake the film, and this time not featuring Zegler. So how did they decide to cast this time, and how is this new movie going to be any different? The remake. While Disney was struggling to save its remake from getting flopped, the Daily Wire saw this as a golden opportunity. The conservative media company jumped in an instant and decided to make its own version of Snow White. They decided to make one that stays true to the original Grimm brothers fairy tale without all the modern politics Disney has been cramming down everyone's throat. Fans of the original classic could not be more thrilled. Finally, a remake that actually respects the source material instead of twisting it to fit some agenda. The excitement around this new version is already through the roof. People are eager to see what happens when Snow White gets back to its fairy tale roots, free from Disney's unnecessary reimagining. So who would be leading the charge in this new Snow White? None other than YouTube star Brett Cooper, who has been winning hearts left and right. The release of the first teaser for her version was met with glowing reviews, and fans are already declaring her portrayal a clear victory over Rachel Zegler's failed attempt. One fan summed it up perfectly. "Wow, this looks better than Rachel Zegler's version. I would see this anytime over Rachel Zegler's version by far." And honestly, it is not hard to see why not. Unlike Zegler, who could not stop running her mouth about how outdated and weird the original Snow White was, Cooper has been nothing but respectful and professional. She is grateful for the role, excited to honor the classic story, and has not stirred up a single controversy. It is refreshing to see someone who actually cares about the project they are working on, instead of using it as a platform for unnecessary drama. Cooper's attitude has not gone unnoticed. Fans are loving her down-to-earth approach and her commitment to preserving the essence of Snow White. While Zegler is busy criticizing the original and causing drama, Cooper is focused on delivering a movie that fans can genuinely be excited about. No drama, no divisive comments, just a performance that pays homage to a beloved classic. The positive reception of Cooper's teaser says it all. Fans are drawn to her authenticity and grace, especially in contrast to Zegler's more controversial remarks. Cooper's dedication to staying true to the heart of the fairy tale has won her a lot of praise, and the excitement for her version of Snow White is only growing. And now the exciting part is that if the Daily Wire's Snow White ends up outperforming Disney's at the box office, it will be a Hollywood twist no one saw coming. Imagine that. Disney, the king of fairy tales, being dethroned by an indie production that simply respected the story. Meanwhile, Disney's version is expected to be nothing short of a disaster. Fans are tearing it apart for being too reliant on CGI, lacking any of the magical vibe that made the original so enchanting. On top of that, Zegler has been catching heat from all angles, not just for her remarks on Snow White. Shortly after Disney dropped their teaser, Zegler tweeted, "Always remember Free Palestine," which sparked even more outrage. With her co-star Gal Gadot being very vocal about her support for Israel, it is no surprise there is tension on set. Fans have already predicted some awkward promo tours if these two could not even stand each other. But the real question on everyone's mind is, which Snow White adaptation is going to come out on top? Now that we have seen the trailer of the new remake in Disney's own disaster, let's see how both of these are going to be different if they are based on the same story, and which is going to be better. Disney versus Daily Wire. On one side, we have Disney's contemporary reimagining, drenched in modern feminist themes, and on the other, we have the Daily Wire's more faithful retelling of the classic fairy tale. This cinematic showdown has audiences eagerly waiting to see which version will reign supreme. Disney's version is trying to push empowerment and leadership to the forefront. They have turned Snow White into a more independent, assertive character, hoping to appeal to today's audiences who seem to crave strong, self-reliant female protagonists. It sounds great in theory, but as always, Disney loves overdoing things. Instead of finding a balance, they have turned this classic into something completely unrecognizable. Longtime fans of the 1937 film are not exactly jumping for joy. They are worried, rightfully so, that Disney might just strip away everything that made the original magical. And that's where the Daily Wire swoops in, promising a version that stays true to the original story without any of the forced political messaging. They have promised no modern spins, no unnecessary changes, just a classic story with all the traditional elements intact. And as expected, fans are loving the new trailer. People who feel betrayed by Disney's new direction are flocking to the Daily Wire's adaptation, praising their commitment to preserving the integrity of the story. As Disney's and the Daily Wire's version is ready to be released, the anticipation is building. Fans, critics, and everyone in between are eager to see how these adaptations handle the iconic story of Snow White. The real question is, will the Daily Wire's version win over fans who just want a classic story told, right? People are fed up with unnecessary changes that don't add anything meaningful, and they are looking for a version that actually respects the original story. Disney, on the other hand, has done all the damage by modernizing the tale and adding their progressive spin on it. Now, the stakes could not be higher. Now, this is not just about which version makes more money at the box office. We want to see whose storytelling really resonates with people today. Can Disney fix the mess they have created, or are they about to get shown up by the Daily Wire? As the tension builds, it is anybody's game. All we need right now is to watch a movie that is just as simple, innocent, and full of magic as the 1937 version. So, which version are you going to watch next year? Tell us in the comments below. If you want more updates on this drama, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.